Okay, so I just wanted to look at the lighting setup before we go any further, because this is all very bright and shiny, and it's starting to get on my nerves a little bit. So what we could do is first of all, let's look at the material. Okay, so the material that I created in ProBuilder, or for ProBuilder, or for this level, should I say? Let's look at the actual setup. So right now it's quite shiny, which is what we want, but we want a really metallic looking surface. Let's look over here. I've got this normal map put on here, which I can make a little bit stronger, which gives us a much harder effect, which is kind of cool. We can actually make the room more metallic, yes, which gives it a much more hard look. And then the smoothness actually makes it much more shiny and glossy, as you can see here, right? Which is probably a little bit too much. If I lower down the normal map a little bit, that's a bit overkill. And part of the normal map is actually making this paint stick out, which is not intended, but do you know what? It doesn't look too bad. Let's make that a little bit more or less metallic, maybe. Somewhere in there, a little bit more shine. That's kind of cool. Let's have a zoom out there and see what we look at. That's, yeah, Jesus, that's actually that's a bit too shiny. Looks like everything is wet, which is weird. Okay, so let's put the smoothness down a bit. Let's make everything just a little bit shinier again. I wonder if it's just too bright. Is that it? Let's drive this color tone down a bit. Ooh, that redness makes it look kind of a bit dingier or rustier, which is kind of cool. Yeah, that's cool. Still a little bit too shiny. Let's take out the metal. Is not doing much for that look. I like that metal look. Let's keep that in there and drop the shine down a bit more. Okay, cool. Right, but the lighting, you know, that's not doing us any favors. So I'm going to get rid of that direction light. I'll turn it off just for now, and I'm going to start putting in. Do you know what? I'm going to put a light holder. I'll just call this lights. And this is just going to hold our lights. It's going to be a nice way of collapsing things, keeping our hierarchy looking nice and tidy. And then I'm going to add some point lights. Where am I? 3D objects. Point lights. What am I looking at? Light. Point light. Here we go. Alright, so that is a real-time bounce. Yeah, that's fine. We drop that in there. Not seeing a huge amount of reflections. I might put these in the center of the room, and I'm going to drop out the range just so we kind of kiss the edges of the room, and I'm going to up the intensity, something like that. The lighting, I'm thinking some sort of a kind of a bluey, kind of fluorescent lighting. Makes things look a little bit colder and creepier. So shadows, yeah, we got no shadows. Let's get some soft shadows in there, and let's look at the mode. Yeah, we've got that set as real time. Put that over to mixed, which will actually start our lighting setup. We'll start baking things, I hope. One of the things I want to look at is, yeah, I'll change that from progressive to GPU, and hoping that will actually bake things. One of the things I didn't do, I think, is to set the entire level as static. Yeah. We should probably change the children, yes. If you do that, yes, everything will start baking. So it'll start using light mapping inside your scene, which is a bit nicer. One of the other things you can do to get nicer lighting and rendering quality is to change your, oh god, what's it called? Where are we? Let's go to our player settings. I can find it through here. So build settings, player settings. I want to change our rendering color space, that's it, from gamma to linear. And also cross your fingers and things don't break. Okay, so now when we bake that, Yeah, we should get much better lighting and color. Linear gives you a much kind of wider color range, in my opinion. So, okay, that's that light there. Let's duplicate a couple of those. Maybe just the one down here for now. Alright, and let's have a look at this from a first person perspective and see, is that actually making any difference? That's not bad. Another thing you can do is to introduce reflection probes. So I might create a separate group for that, reflection probes. And I'll center those as well, 0, 0, and 0. And you know what? That really annoys me. I'll take that away. If you put in a reflection probe, what this does is it helps to map the actual reflective surfaces around, giving you a little more of a sense of realism. So I think that's in light, is it? Yeah, reflection probe. Okay. So right away it's doing its job. I need that to sit somewhere in the center of the room. So what that'll do is it'll calculate all the reflective surfaces inside that room that it can see. I'll move its box size way down to, I think we're 5 by 5 actually. That should fit nicely. Maybe I'll make it 6 by 6 by 6. And that should actually map and bake reflections onto those surfaces. Not seeing a huge change there, but I'm sure it's doing its job. Yeah, I want that to be real time. Does that make a difference there? No. Okay. Let's put it in baked and we'll give it a high resolution, maybe 512. Yeah, that actually takes a bit more time to do. They do actually slow down your bake times. Maybe I'll leave it at 128. Okay, and I'm going to duplicate that and put it down below as well. So down here. Is that sitting too low? It is, right? Forgive me. This needs to be up here. There we go. That's better. And as you can see, the lighting is now being reflected out into the corridor, which is kind of cool. Where's that other one? That was too low as well. Should have noticed the top of it was sitting strange there. There we go. Let's put that up about there. Cool. Yeah, that's nice and creepy. So obviously you won't see these inside your game. I want to adjust the camera as well because that's sitting a little bit too close to our player, I think. So the camera height was 3. Let's make it a little bit higher. And the distance, let's have a look at that. Let's see where we are. Alright, yeah, this looks a little bit cooler now. Yeah, I like that. Let's have a look over here. Yeah, so the lighting isn't reaching out as far as here. I think it's because the reflection probe isn't actually touching off that object, or could be something else. Maybe it's just the range of the light itself. But we might do something a little bit more interesting with kind of post-processing and glow and stuff inside there. So that brings me on to our post-processing package. That's something I wasn't going to touch on till later, but look, while I'm in here, I may as well do it now. So let's bring in our package manager. Let's bring in the post-processing package from Unity. It should be down here. There it is. Let's install that. Okay, so that's that finally installed. Okay, so what the post-processing stack does is it adds special effects or additive effects on top of your camera settings so that you can get extra effects rendered in on top of your camera. So one of the things I really like is ambient occlusion, which actually maps in shadowing into corners and areas, giving you an added sense of realism and accurate lighting. There's also some really nice bloom effects, which you can tie into certain materials. So we can actually create a material that is emissive and glows, so we can actually make some lighting in our corridor down here. That's what I'm going to do in a sec. Okay guys, apologies, I just recovered from a crash there. So I had just installed post-processing stack. I'm going to create a folder for that now. There's a couple of little steps we have to do. It's going to create a post-processing profiles. And inside that, I'm going to create a post-processing profile. Which is this. I'm going to call that PPP, and that's the icon right there. So this is where you actually add your post-processing effects. And there's a couple of things we need to set up. We need to say that certain things are going to be part of the post-processor. We're going to say that the camera and certain volumes. So we're going to create a volume that says that this is the area that we want to apply this particular post-processing profile. So you attach that to an empty game object. Let's put that at 0, 0, 0. And we'll add the post-processing volume. So this is where you could, say, in an FPS game, have a volume that describes underwater, and you could have post-processing giving you different effects in there. Or you could have it set that you enter into a radiation zone and things change different, or whatever, or whatever. So basically different effects and different post-processed effects that will hit your camera at different areas. We're just going to say for this particular level, because it's so tiny, is that we're going to make this post-processor global, right? So this volume is going to affect every single area in here. We're also going to say, I don't know why I just put the priority of 1 in there just in case, and then we also need to attach the profile that this volume uses, which is the post-processing profile that we just created there. You also want to put this on the post-processing layer, and then the second part is the actual camera that you want the post-processing effects to appear in. So we have our camera for our game. We need to add a post-processing layer to that, and now we need to say what layer we're on. Well, we're on the post-processing layer right there, not UI. There we go. Do we want anti-aliasing? I'm going to leave that off for a minute. And I'm also going to make this camera part of the post-processing layer. I'm fairly certain that's how it works. So let's test this out. Let's put an effect on our stack. So we add, let's add the ambient occlusion effect, which is going to add that that faux shadowing I was talking about. So select all. Let's put the intensity up, and there we go. If you look inside the scene view, you can see almost like shadows growing inside the game. Do you see that? That's particularly good for a kind of a creepy game like we're looking at. So I'm going to put the intensity up relatively high, something like that. Okay. There's other effects in here as well, where you can actually add some bloom. So bloom basically makes a kind of a hazy glow around strong light sources and kind of white colors. And let's have a look at that. If you make that a little bit more intense, you can see that the light is actually giving off a glare there now, right? If you make that really intense, you can see the light is really, really glowing. Let's just set that to somewhere like 2 for now. I'm not going to go into all of the settings about this. So what else we got? We've got color grading. We can change our color set so that we can create more filmic style or whatever kind of style of color keying you want to create. I like to pick the ACES mode, which does actually make things look substantially darker, but you do get a kind of a striking contrast out of it. Then I like to push the post exposure up a little bit, like so. This will actually have to pull the bloom right down in order to use this correctly, but I like that look right there. So let's go back up to our bloom and pull the intensity right down. Let's have a look. Yeah, that's probably overexposed. Maybe somewhere. You know what? Let's meet in the middle. Let's call that 1. And go back to the intensity of our color grading, and let's drag that to post right down. Okay, that's kind of what I was looking for. I know it's quite dark, but you know, this is a kind of a creepy kind of sci-fi game, right? So, and then from a first-person perspective, as you can see, that's making things look kind of more interesting than they were. A little bit kind of scarier down here. Yeah, cool. Right. So now we have some lighting issues down here. So this is where I was talking about actually creating some kind of like a glowing emissive texture, right, or material. So let's pick some points in here and like scoped out some kind of side lamp systems, right? So let's say this particular poly right here. I believe that's 1, is it? No, let's. Do you know what would be cool? Let's put them in here. So if I take this, go to my scale mode, and then I want the origin or the orientation to be local to the panel. I'll turn snapping back on. Oh crap, I can't pick that. Let's go into object, turn snapping back on, and select that back again. Cool. And I'm hoping that if I hold shift and control, I'll get the snap inwards one like so. There we go. So that's extruded inwards. And I'll do the same thing, shift and control for this one. Right. So now I've got these brand new faces right here. Okay. What I can do is create a nice lighting emissive texture. So create material. Let's call this corridor light. And we need to make that available to our material set. So let's open up the material editor, drag in the corridor light in here, and then we pick those faces again. Which ones were they? Yeah, that and that. Okay, so we can apply the corridor light to that and that. Go back into this mode, and they should be set now. So let's actually modify this corridor light. It's just a white material at the moment. I'm going to make it a kind of an orangey red kind of color, right? Something like that. And there's no light shining on it yet, but when you turn this on as an emissive texture and ramp up the brightness like so. So let's get that into the orange range. Pull the intensity on, right? So we make these more intense, they actually start to behave like light sources themselves, and the scenery around them starts to react, which is very cool. So now as I look at that, ooh, have I made it so I can't see them? That was stupid of me. Okay. Right. Okay. Lesson learned. Okay, so that curves inwards, right? So that doesn't make sense. Do you know what? I'm going to leave them there. Because I'm not going to undo all of that, but what we could do, or do I need to? Do I need to? What happens if I undo that? Yeah, if I go back a few. Okay, Z, Control Z, Control Z. Yeah, okay, all that. Do you know what? I'm going to take this one and do the same thing. So there, and I think it was there. They were nice. Hold down Shift, Control, scale inwards. Shift, Control, and scale. Okay. No. Okay. Do you know what? Am I selecting local here? Oh, it's because I did both at the same time. Sorry. Okay. Shift, Control, and drag. Shift, Control, and drag. And then I'm going to do the same thing with those materials. So back to my material editor and my corridor light. I want that in there. And let's go back to this. Make it emissive again. I want that to be orangey color. Don't know if that makes a difference. let me know in the comments if you're still listening. And let's get the intensity right up there. Oh yeah, that needs to be kind of, yeah, there we go. Something orange. I think orange reacts really nicely, I think, to kind of steel metal plating and that kind of thing. So very cool. All right, so we could probably do with a couple more of these dotted around. Let's say somewhere at the mouth of this here, maybe right here. Right, so shift, control, and drag, and then back to our material editor. And what's nice about this is I just have to apply it, and it'll do the job straight away. Yeah. Okay. Maybe another one. Looks a little bit imbalanced without it. Okay. Unbalanced. What are we talking about? This one here? Okay, shift control, and then material, and Carolite. There we go. Alright, let's make them a little bit different over here. Might just do a couple in here for the hell of it. Oh, do you know what? I don't have the actual geometry to do it in this one. So what I could do is pick the edges, insert an edge loop. Maybe move it across a couple, like so, like that, and then do another one, maybe insert edge loop. So, and move that to here, and then maybe make one more, insert edge loop, like that. And then these bottom plates down here, I could insert them down on this side here. So that one. So scale, shift, control, drag. Scale, shift, control, drag. And into my materials, I'll pick both of those. And where's my materials? There we go. And Carolite. Yeah, and that makes it look a little bit more, I suppose, a bit more organic, a little bit different, kind of cool. Might do one on the inside, just for the crack. There we go. Shift, control, drag. Did I just select two of those? Ooh, that's interesting. Kind of snap that way. Do you know what? I might leave it. Yeah, and I'll apply that right there. Oh, whoa, that came from above. That's what it was. Okay, that one's selected as well. Don't want that. All right. There we go. Let's apply that there. Right, so that makes things look a little bit cooler, a little bit more fun, a little bit more inviting to play. All right. So that takes care of a couple of things. Let's go back to my list. I've got that done. That, do you know what? Let's introduce 3.5 here, and we've got 3.4. 3.5, lighting and post-processing. Cool. So there's another little mini bid for you. Save that. I mean, there are a couple other post-processing things we could do. There's other effects like chromatic aberration, which kind of creates almost like a it feels to me almost like a video that's going out of sync or something. We've also got screen space reflections, which are pretty hard on the system. It'll actually reflect light and other characteristics around the scene. Do we have reflection pros? We do. Do you know what? I'll throw that on so you can see what it looks like. This effect only works with the deferred rendering path, right? So that's in your camera. If we switch this over to deferred rendering, you'll see that that changes things a little bit. It looks actually looks a bit better. Yeah, deferred and multi-sampling anti-aliasing not supported. Okay, so that's the multi-sample anti-aliasing. Probably don't need that right now. But yeah, go back to the post-processing filter. Let's select all of those, and you could put this onto overkill mode, and it'll do some crazy stuff with those reflection probes. I should probably dot reflection probes around inside here, so I'll do that real quick as well. These are baked, yeah, okay. So if I duplicate this one, push it out. Sorry, I need to go into object mode, so let's push it out to here. And I'm going to make that substantially smaller, just so it doesn't start interfering with other areas. Yeah, something like that. I think that's pretty safe. Alright, I'll duplicate that one. Move it over here. Yeah, you can see that it's actually starting to affect the areas. You see it's kind of touching off these areas, and it's causing those reflections. It's kind of cool. Let's put another one up here. Maybe a little bit further up, because there's work being done by the other one there. It'd be nice if it kind of, yeah, if it encompassed that edge right there, which is kind of missing. Yeah. Alright, and then I'll do the same for over here, so just duplicate that one right there. This one I'll put over here. This one I'll put over here. Okay, so as you can see, we've gotten away with using a pretty poor UV mapping system, pretty poor texture sheet for starters, but it creates something really actually kind of cool looking. Looks pretty creepy. Move around inside here. Yeah, if you took a little bit more time, you could probably do something pretty cool from a first-person perspective. But for now, it's looking from a top down. That looks kind of cool to me. Let's have a look. Yeah, so there's my character. Nice and creepy lighting. So move into this section. Yeah, it's kind of dark. I suppose from a game perspective, you'd have to make it so that there's a reason for the character to want to come down here. We might actually give them a flashlight. That would be kind of cool, actually. Let's see how that reacts. So if I just stick a spotlight on the character, sticking out front. So here's the player. I'm going to collapse down the level, the camera, and the reflection probes. Save. And then I'm going to add a light. Let's make it a spotlight. It's already, yeah, shooting straight out the front of the character right there, which is great. It's real time. Let's give it an intensity. There we go. And give it a wider angle, maybe something like that. Less of a range, maybe. I would say something like that. That's pretty cool. Now, when we look around, our character at least will be shining a torch, and it gives you an idea of which direction I suppose they're facing. That's pretty cool. So we go down in here, we can start lighting up our way. That's, yeah, I like that. That's cool. And it'll give us more of a sense of, I suppose, the direction that we're facing as well, seeing as our player is nothing more than glorified Tic Tac. Cool. So I'm going to leave it there with lighting for now, and let's move on to enemies. Enemies next, and nav meshes. Thanks.